All right, cool. So today we are going to be doing a little 30-minute play session here of Celeste. We're going to be talking about its visual design. We're going to be talking about its controls. We're going to be just kind of talking generally about the game while we are playing here. So I have spent around an hour de-rusting, but that hour kind of went to waste because I was doing it while it wasn't in TV mode, and there's a slightly different delay on things in TV mode. So apologies if on cue I do a little bit of weird things here. But yeah, so talking a little bit about Celeste has kind of become the gold standard, as it were, for like platform character design, and I think a lot of that comes from their intent versus they design the game around player intent. So that comes through in a lot of different ways. So chiefly, one of the most famous is the coyote time, or after you fall off of a ledge, you have around 3 frames to still jump. You see how I can kind of get off this edge here and still jump after I come off of it. So that's coyote time. That is a huge help. So what that kind of manifests as is essentially like not punishing the player for, putting their inputs in very slightly too late, because it feels less like they you put your input in too late, and a lot more like the game has somehow lost an input for some sort. Another thing that Celeste is really popular for, of course, is the story mission, the story content. I won't look into it too much for the sake of this play session here, but there's a lot of stuff you can kind of uncover and discover off of the sort of critical path, as it were. Another thing that they do is right before you land, you actually can jump around, like just a little bit right before, and it will remember that you wanted to jump, and it won't eat your input. So same with the coyote time. There's like a little bit of time in which, oh, by the way, the coyote time is named after in Looney Tunes, the Wile E. Coyote walking off the edge. So then, of course, there's other secrets, right? You can hop in here, and then the strawberries, right? So the strawberries are really big because it allows you to present challenges to people if they want to take them, but not necessarily force them to take them if they don't want to. Yeah, and then obviously there's all of this more visual parts of the design. So there's like a tiny screen shake when you're dashing. But the big thing is readability, being able to understand at a glance what exactly is something you can land on and something that you can't land on. The way that manifests most obviously is that there are there's like this really bright white line, especially on this first level here. You can see that all of these surfaces that you can land on have this really bright contrast in comparison to the background, that makes it super clear immediately where you can and cannot land. The other thing that helps with that, and it's a kind of subtle thing that seems like it's just kind of part of the art style at first, but it really is like an intentional choice, is the fact that I don't know how I can showcase this. Let me hop up here. So there's kind of the overall shape of the levels is very clearly defined, in that like there's like a sharp line that goes around the contours of the level. So this shape comes around, and you can see that it drops off very clearly. If that black area was filled in, it might be a little harder, a little bit less immediately clear to see the overall contour of the level. So again, just a little thing there to help So, of course, the other thing with Celeste is that it has a lot of elements that kill you really often, right? But at no point does it feel like you ever lose a lot of progress through it. There's no, like, resetting to the checkpoint. I can sit here and die as much as I want, right? And at no point am I going to get booted out to the beginning of the game. Which, again, is just something that works for Celeste, right? Talking about the game controls here, right? The dash is something that is exclusive to Celeste, right? That's kind of the main mechanic, or the jump height being really perfectly tuned to be a little bit more floaty, so that you can really figure out where you're trying to land. A lot of air control, those sorts of things. Even stuff as simple as like the grab. The other thing is that there's a little bit of forgiveness. I'm going to try and see if I can showcase this here. You can see there's actually a little bit of forgiveness for when you jump off of this platform here. This is actually where I noticed it first, is that you don't have to jump perfectly off of it in order to get the boost from it. And actually, the forgiveness length on that is almost too much, to the point where it's noticeable. I don't think I would, if I were designing this video game, make it smaller, but, you know, just something to consider in terms of those sorts of features being noticeable. So obviously we talked about the visual contrast of things, making the dashes as clear as day as they are, right? This game isn't supposed to be some sort of like magical fantasy game. I mean, there are some fantastical elements, but on the whole, the game is not supposed to be this like fantastical game, right? And yet, we have this like dash that's kind of out of place in terms of like a quote unquote realistic world. But the choice was made because it suited the gameplay so much better than the alternative. And the way that really manifests is that the hair color changes. Madeline's hair color changes to reflect how many dashes you have left, which is like a really, really elegant piece of visual design to just immediately tell you like, oh yeah, I'm out of jumps in the air, or oh, I have another jump I can use. Those sorts of things. So we're coming up on the end of the level here, I think. Oh no, we aren't. I'm gonna go ahead and go ahead and return to the map here and move ahead into another level so you can get a little variety of things here going. Cool. So let's go ahead and do this one. I think there's some cool stuff to talk about in this one. So also I'm realizing now that the audio is maybe slightly delayed. That's easily fixable though. So this is a great level that showcases the dual purpose design in some of this. So you can see we have these big black kind of voids and whatnot. And as you're going through the level, you're trying to figure out what's going on with them. This is, speaking about the like kind of fantastical elements. This is a spoiler alert dream sequence, but got a little thing here. Oh yeah, we need to go to the bottom one first. That's right. But yeah, this level probably showcases a lot more of what I was trying to explain earlier, where it is super, super, super incredibly clear where you can and cannot land. Just with that little tile, the tile set, being kind of as clear as day as it is. I don't have my mouse cursor on this one, so I'm not going to be able to point it out. But you can see right underneath Madeline at the moment, there's that patch of dirt, and then underneath that patch of dirt is complete darkness. That really just helps sell the overall shape of the level. So you can immediately see at a glance the contours of the level, where you're going to want to be going, what you can and cannot land on, as I've now said a couple times. The other thing is that there's a lot of expressiveness in the controls. So if I dash and then jump, quickly, you actually get this really, really long jump. So I'm crouching and then dashing and moving forward, and you can see it's a super long jump. And you can actually, if you time it perfectly, you actually are able to regain your dash mid-air. And what that lets you do is dash again right when you get to the ground, and chain together that momentum. Which isn't really needed in any of the core, like the regular levels, but it is a integral part of the B-sides, especially the later B-sides. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next level here. Whoops, I started again on accident. But yeah, another thing that kind of exemplifies the intended design of this game is that on this screen, this is just kind of the pause screen, the map screen, right? On this screen, there is an indicator of how many times you've died, which is like it makes it really clear as to, yeah. See, in the loading screens, they show stuff like this, like it's inspired obviously by, Kaizo Mario, as the designers have talked about previously. But in that way, it's not, again, they've designed it to act upon the player's intention, not necessarily on whether or not the player can like perfectly execute a huge combo of perfectly timed button presses and whatnot. And instead, they test that functionality in the B-sides. So obviously, these levels are still difficult. Like, it's hard to, especially when you're as rusty and as TV delayed as I am. Certainly, like the first time you play through it, it is a difficult platformer in a lot of ways. But it is never it's never unfair. It's always the game is always about, it's as it were your fault that you died. Oh, this is the cutscene one. It's your fault that you died. Like, everything moves in a predictable fashion. You know exactly what you were supposed to do, where you were supposed to move, how you could have waited a couple seconds longer. And it's about, this trial and error process of trying over and over again. The death animation is super, super fast. And it just takes you right back. At no point do you feel like, oh, wow, I'm really upset about this map. You are solving a puzzle more than anything else. About how to best go about a particular room. Which is why I like to call it a puzzle platformer. But in that way, there's a lot of games that are puzzle platformers. So you're not actually really solving puzzles. By that definition, every single game is a puzzle game, right? Because you're presented with a challenge and you have to figure out how to, overcome that challenge. So it's just that this game has chosen its challenge to be not the controls, but instead like your approach to different levels and the timing, and specifically the execution. So not necessarily like the map design is difficult, or obviously any enemies are difficult. Like, these guys aren't even a challenge you can necessarily beat. They're just they just float around in circles. But kind of in that way, they are not necessarily a challenge so much as they are an environmental element that just helps to really push forward the idea that it's about timing more than anything else. And you can see that these enemies reset to exactly where they started at the beginning of every single room. So I'm going to go up and over instead. So you can see I'm kind of solving that design there. And we got our key. So let's go ahead and unlock this door over here. I believe this room, if I remember correctly, yeah, is where we're introduced to this element, where the stuff appears after you've touched it to really push you further to think about where you're going